Resistance is a word that's always made me a little uncomfortable. Growing up in a family where obedience was the consummate virtue, living under the stereotype of Asian women as docile and meek, for many years it was hard for me to see any place in my life for resistance. And what does it mean to embrace resistance in a society that already tells you you don't belong, where your very presence is an act of defiance? We're talking this month about holding history. But as Reverend Becky shared in her sermon 2 weeks ago, whose history? I never saw myself reflected in any of the stories told in my history classes. The one place where I remember Asians even being mentioned was in discussion of the Japanese internment camps, where my 8th grade history teacher used me and a Korean American classmate as props, pointing us and taunting, "She's a Jap! She's a Jap too!" The memory still bothers me 25 years later. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that I learned about Vincent Chin, a Chinese American beaten to death in Detroit in 1982 by 2 men who blamed Japanese auto manufacturers for the US auto industry's troubles and assumed Chin was Japanese as well. His murder galvanized Asian American activism, uniting different ethnic groups into a contemporary movement and inspiring younger generations to get involved as activists and politicians. Jen Fang, an Asian American feminist and author of the blog Reappropriate, writes that the assumption that Asian Americans lack a history of resistance is patently ahistorical, like really, really, really wrong, like insultingly wrong. Learning about the labor strikes of the late 1800s, the citizenship case of Wong Kim Ark, and the fight to bring Asian American studies to college campuses gives us all an opportunity to rewrite the false narratives we've been taught. My Unitarian Universalist faith has also taught me that pushing against dominant oppressive systems is a sacred act. It gives me both the inspiration and the strength to engage in holy resistance. It gives me a vision for a world where all people have the opportunity to thrive and an incubator to practice a different kind of community. In this spirit, today we present music and poetry from Black, Native, and Asian artists as expressions of holy resistance. May they inspire you as they have inspired us.
This month, First Parish is supporting the United American Indians of New England. UAINE is an organization of and led by Native people and their supporters. The goal of UAINE is to fight back against racism towards Native people, the issues of the Pilgrim mythology perpetuated in Plymouth, and the United States assault on poor people. They also are fighting for the freedom of Leonard Peltier, as well as other political prisoners. They work to support Indigenous struggles in New England and throughout America. They welcome the support of Indigenous people from all parts of the Americas, as well as the support of non-Native people. They strongly believe they must support others in the struggle, particularly other communities of color, the LGBTQ community, and the disabled community. Funds raised in November will be used to specifically support the UAINE Fall 2021 fundraising campaign. The funds will go to support efforts to live stream the 52nd National Day of Mourning on November 25th, expenses for Indigenous Peoples Day campaigns and events, efforts to support legislation, and the many other activities that may be undertaken during the course of the year. UAINE receives no funding from the government and relies solely on the support of others. There are no paid staff members of UAINE. Please note, UAINE is not a tax-deductible organization. If you wish to make a donation, please find the information in this week's parish announcements.